Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, our Candidates in Conversation continues with Jay Feely, the Republican nominee for Arizona's 1st Congressional District. And also tonight, we'll hear arguments for and against a ballot measure that would change how larger Arizona school districts allocate their budgets. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Our series Candidates in Conversation continues tonight with a focus on the race for Arizona's 1st Congressional District, which includes areas of Northeast Phoenix, Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, and Fountain Hills. It's Arizona's wealthiest congressional district, and it's an open seat with Republican incumbent David Schweikert having retired to run for governor. Jay Feely is the Republican candidate for CD1. Feely is a former NFL player and sports broadcaster. As for the Democratic candidate, Amish Shah, he declined our invitation to participate in tonight's discussion. Thank you for joining us tonight, Jay Feely. Good to have you here.
My pleasure. Good to be here with you as well. Is it you or me that they don't like?
I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. We can work that out later. I mentioned Arizona's wealthiest district here, and so there's a kind of a different set of problems than maybe in some of the other districts. What is the most pressing issue in Congressional District 1?
I think for sure the economy and affordability. That's when I'm out knocking on doors and meeting with people and doing events, that's the issue that people keep bringing up. And, you know, people in general care about the economy. They care about the future for their children. You know, when you go to the grocery store, you look at prices. When you buy gas, obviously, that's a big one as well. And, you know, I think it's a conversation that you need to have because you have to understand the voter and you have to understand where they're at and then help them understand where we're going and give them a roadmap to the future. That's what I've been trying to do when we're having conversations.
How do you improve the economy? How do you improve affordability, especially when the president says everything's great, prices are coming down, affordability isn't even a word?
Well, I think, number one, you acknowledge the reality of what's going on, and that's certainly what I do. And you acknowledge the pain that some people feel when they go to the pump or they go to the grocery store. The way that you combat affordability is, number one, real wage growth. And the president has done that. He's done it in his first term. He did it now in the second term. And the Biden administration had regressive wage growth. They did not have wage growth, and President Trump has been able to do that in both of his terms. And then you get rid of regulation. You know, you look at the housing cost, and about a quarter of the housing cost is because of regulations. As you can cut regulations, you can build houses quicker. You get rid of the interest carry that builders have to have and that they pass on to the consumer. You know, those are ways that you can continue to help, real ways to help people have more money in their pockets.
What about things like tariffs? Because the vast majority of folks, economists in particular, say that tariffs are not helping the economy. Tariffs are one of the reasons the economy is sluggish. And this recent, what do you think of what's happening between the U.S. and Canada?
Well, when I look at Canada, in particular, the problems that we're having with the trade deal there relate to China. And Mexico has agreed and acquiesced to do the deal that we want to do with them because we want to make sure that our markets are not getting invaded with Chinese product that just get routed through Mexico or Canada, and in particular steel in Canada. You know, we want to make sure that Chinese steel isn't getting sent to Canada and then they repurpose it and then put it into the U.S. as Canadian products and get the benefit of those trade deals. And all they have to do is agree to a trade deal that we agreed to with Mexico. They need us much more than we need them. At some point, that's going to happen, and they're going to agree to that deal.
So would you vote for or against the tariff? The president wants 50% plus.
It's not going to happen. He's using that as leverage. Everything he does is about leverage to get the best deal for America. You have to look at it in totality. You know, and I kind of break it down this way. You know, Democrats care about intent when they're creating policies. And if the intent is good, even if they don't get the right result, that's the right policy. Republicans, conservatives, we care about the end result. It doesn't matter if your intent is good. If you get the right result, that's good policy. I think President Trump mirrors that more than anybody else because he's going to use leverage. He's going to try to create the right parameters to get the right deal for the U.S.
I'm going to ask you about voters in CD1 a lot here because that's what you care about the most. Do you think they agree that President Trump's economic policies are working and are a good thing?
I think what matters is the individual and how it impacts them. That's why I think you have to listen to everybody, what they're telling you, because their experience is what's real to them. It doesn't matter, what the bigger picture is. I think when you look at no tax on tips and you look at no tax on overtime, those are real measures that help the average everyday worker. That 90% of the people who benefit from those policies, that the Republicans passed and that all the Democrats fought against, that Amish Shah said he would undo, and doesn't want that working families tax cut to be implemented and to be in place. He wants to revoke it and remove it. That helps individuals that make less than $100,000. 90% of the people who are benefit from no tax on tips, who benefit from the no tax on overtime, the majority of seniors who benefit from most of the taxes getting removed from Social Security, those help the average everyday worker more than anything else that we could do.
The 2025 tax cuts are also being mentioned as a reason why the U.S. debt, national debt, has topped $40 trillion, among the reasons, along with tariffs, $40 trillion. What, I mean,
so let's be honest about it.
How do you square that?
Sure. 2/3 of our debt comes from mandated spending. That comes from Medicare, Social Security, SNAP, all those things that Congress has nothing to do with unless they pass laws. The president has nothing to do with that because it comes from Congress. 1/3 of the debt comes from, the things that you just mentioned, tax cuts. So we have to be honest about it, because the only way that you can deal with $40 trillion in debt growing at $1 trillion every 100 days is to deal with all the mandated spending. And, we have to have an honest conversation. Social Security will be insolvent in 2032. We have to have a conversation about, and nobody's been willing to do it since 1983, how do you handle Social Security, and how do you take those and make those difficult conversations, but while still protecting seniors and protecting the investment that they put in, because that's what Social Security was. It's an investment into your future and into your retirement.
But when it comes to the debt, you already have that given. You already have the given that these Social Security safety net programs are costing an awful lot of money. Why would you go ahead with tariffs? Why would you go ahead with the tax cuts to, what looks like, amplify that debt?
So if the tax cuts in the end bring more revenue and generate more jobs and better economy, then the end result is the right result. That's the right policy. If the tariffs in the end create onshoring of manufacturing, which we're seeing at levels we haven't seen since the 1960s. If they bring trade parameters, equal trade parameters, which we haven't had in 80 years, and we have better trade parameters for all of our businesses around the world, then it's the right policy. I understand, that tariffs in the short term are certainly going to lead to an increase in prices. That's true, but it's the end result that you need to be looking at, and that's what President Trump continually tries to do.
Should mail-in voting be restricted? I want to get to election reform and election idea here, because that's a very big topic, and I would imagine pretty big in CD1 as well. Mail-in voting, should that be restricted? President wants it, and the Supreme Court saying, yeah, but maybe no, but we can block it now, but don't block. What do you think?
80% of people in Arizona use mail-in voting. I use mail-in voting. We just want to make sure that the voting is secure, that only American citizens are voting, and only the right citizen who is registered is the one that's voting, and you only vote once. And that's as simple as that. That's what we should have. We should make sure here in Arizona that we pass laws that are similar to Florida. I grew up in Florida. My wife and I lived there during the Hanging Chads. They did an excellent job of changing their system and having it be able to be safe and done on election night. That's what we need to do here.
But so far there have been no fraud problems, no massive fraud problems here in Arizona or around the country. There have been no election problems. Why do we have to go to something like this?
Well, I focus on today, looking forward, and making sure that we try to have secure elections. That's an 80% issue. It's not a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. Everybody in America wants to make sure that our elections are secure and that you can have confidence in them.
All right, but the idea of the United States Postal Service in charge of mail-in ballots, does that make sense to you?
Well, I think they're in charge of making sure that who is sent to them is supposed to be voting are the ones that are getting those letters. That's all they're doing.
Right, but I mean, that's far, they become an enforcement agency here.
Well,
is that comfortable for you?
Again, we could pass the SAVE Act and we wouldn't have to do any of these measures and make sure that, there's an ID and that the person who says they're voting is voting. And that's what I think most Americans want.
So with that in mind, the president says that widespread fraud in recent elections, he says it's rampant, it's there, it's obvious, etc. Do you agree with that?
I'm focused on this election. I don't want to look backwards. I don't want to try to relitigate things. I want to focus on this election on November 3rd and moving forward and making sure, like I said, that people in Arizona and people around the country have confidence in their elections and that we get them done quickly. You know, look at California. California, you don't have confidence in California. It takes a month to count up all the ballots. That's not a system that creates confidence in the average voter.
But the leader of your party, friend, you know President Trump, he says that there's been rampant fraud and something has to be done about it. He says he won when he lost. Can you concede that he lost? I mean, I'm trying to get Republicans to just concede the fact and then we can move on. Can you concede that fact?
Yeah, President Trump lost that election, and we need to make sure that going forward, everyone has confidence in the election process going forward, that it's safe and secure.
Thank you for that. Iran war. Are we waging the Iran war? Are we doing the right thing over there?
So my question is, for anybody who's against the Iran war, what was the alternative, right? The alternative is to do nothing, right now. And they were stockpiling and manufacturing at a very rapid pace these long-range missiles. China was helping them. If they got enough long-range missiles, no one would be able to go in there and check and make sure that they're not creating and developing a nuclear weapon. It's the same thing that happened in North Korea, except you'd have the country that supports terrorism all over the world, that has advocated for destroying the United States, destroying Israel with a nuclear weapon. And so I think President Trump actually should get some measure of respect for doing what he believes was in the best interest of this country, even if it wasn't in his own personal best interest or the best interest of his party, the Republican Party, because they knew that in the short term, it would drive up energy costs. They knew that that would drive up gas prices and that those things would work against them in the midterms.
But isn't that the job of Congress? I think a big factor in all of this is that there was no War Powers Act. Congress was not going to...
Ted, you and I both know, like, Biden did the same thing. Obama did the same thing.
That doesn't make it right. What I'm saying is...
That is the way that presidents of both parties, though, have advocated and done their job when it comes to taking those decisions.
But you want to go to Congress. Would you just cede that? Would you just give an olé to the president when he wants to do something like that?
Well, I think you have to follow the laws and follow the rules. And I think if you look at both parties, they have taken measures and leeway when it comes to deciding the actions that they're going to take.
If you go to Congress, would you hold the administration, this administration, the next administration, more accountable than this particular Congress is doing?
I think Congress in general has a very low favorability rating. Democrats are the lowest they've ever been. I think your job in office is to advocate and to protect the people that voted for you to get into office. So my first job is to protect the people of the 1st Congressional District. Second job is to make sure we're creating the right economic environment for people, individuals, and businesses to succeed. And your third job is to make sure we're following the law.
Last question. Again, I mentioned that you and President Trump are friends. You know the man. I had a relationship. Do you want him out here in Congressional District 1 campaigning for you?
Well, I'm transparent about who I am. I'm not going to try to be somebody different than I was in the primary, now in the general. Obviously, he endorsed me in the primary. We've been friends. We've known each other since well before he ran for office and before I got into office. I think it's going to come down to a choice of two things in this district in particular, and really two visions of where the country is going. You know, you have common sense measures of Republicans on the right, and you have socialist measures and a Bernie Sanders type guy, and Amish Shah, who's been campaigning for Bernie Sanders for 10 years. And, you know, he believes in these DSA policies. All the way back to 2019, he talked at some of these DSA rallies, and he believes in these crazy policies that they want to implement.
But
things like, you know, no borders, no prisons, no private property rights. These are ideas that I don't think resonate with the people in the 1st Congressional District, and I don't think they resonate with normal, average people around the country.
And if he were here, I certainly would ask him about those things. But
he could have been here to defend himself.
I appreciate you being here, but the last question before we're out of time here, you didn't answer my question. Would you want the president out here helping you? Because in Congressional District 1, that's a very slim majority district for Republicans, if it even exists anymore with so many independents, and his approval ratings are pretty low. How do you handle that?
I handle that by talking to people, by going door to door, by having events. We're going to have some town halls with independents and Democrats. Anybody who wants to come and talk to me and hear our story and hear about why we care about people and how I want to do that in Congress and do it the right way, that's how you handle it. You have those conversations and you communicate with people.
Still didn't get my question there. But Jay Feely, I thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Nearly 5 million people a year travel to Arizona from all over the world for a chance to peer into the sublime expanse of the Grand Canyon. It's hard to imagine that any of them noticed the giant Navajo sandstone slab jutting from the earth just outside the park's eastern entrance at milepost 268 on Highway 64. A plaque was once affixed to this stone. It honored the victims of one of the gravest air tragedies in American history. On the morning of June 30th, 1956, TWA Flight 2 and United Airlines Flight 718 left Los Angeles within minutes of each other. One was en route to Kansas City, the other for Chicago. They would collide over the Grand Canyon. Both airlines and the government would recover, identify, and return home as many of the victims as the rugged wilderness would yield. 67 of the TWA victims, 63 unidentified, are buried in the Citizens Cemetery in Flagstaff. Services were performed by Roman Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, and Mormon clergymen. 29 unidentified victims from the United flight were interred below a memorial in the Grand Canyon Cemetery on the South Rim. Public outcry from the accident resulted in the creation of the Federal Aviation Agency and a modernization of the country's air traffic control system. Nobody knows what happened to the plaque that once paid tribute to the victims of Flight 2 and 718, but their deaths are honored by the safe arrival of the many tourists that fly to the Grand Canyon each and every day.
Proposition 320 is a ballot measure that calls for larger school districts in Arizona, including all districts in Maricopa, Pima, and Pinal counties, to devote at least 60% of their budgets to classroom spending. Tonight, we hear from those for and against Prop 320. Speaking in support, Matt Beinberg, Director of Education Policy at the Goldwater Institute, and in opposition, Jimmy Arwood with Arizona's For Quality Education. Good to have you both here. Thank you so much for joining us. Matt, I want to start with you. Prop 320, did I get it right? What exactly does this call for?
Yeah, it's a very straightforward measure. It says we're going to prioritize student funding. We're going to put dollars into the classroom. It says school districts will spend at least 60% of their operational dollars on classroom instruction. Those who aren't at that level have a very gradual roadmap to get there. It says increase your amount of spending on instruction by 0.5% each year, the allocation. So not in terms of you have to put new dollars in, but just when you're looking at your budget, make sure you're prioritizing what's actually going to the classroom and not getting diverted elsewhere.
The phrase direct instructional expenses is used. What exactly does that mean? Yeah,
so the State Auditor General puts that together and basically says this is categories of instruction, including teachers and textbooks, direct stuff in the classroom. It's those things the things that you kind of think of. Core instruction includes, special education teachers in most cases, includes the things that students are most in need of receiving, that direct classroom instruction experience.
Okay, Jimmy, why is this a bad idea?
Well, Ted, this punishes schools for providing kids the resources that they need. When you drop your kid off at campus for a day at school, and they walk through the doors of the campus, you expect as a parent that the security there is going to be good, that the school resource officer there is keeping them safe. That is not included in direct instruction. When your kid has type 1 diabetes or needs to go see the school nurse, that's not included in this definition. When your kid is just sitting in the classroom and the air conditioning is blowing, that counts against schools in this definition, and that's not right.
How do you respond to that?
Yeah, look, there are hugely important things outside of it. This isn't saying 100% goes to classroom instruction, right? It's saying 60%. Nurses, counselors, school resource officers, those things can all be, you have that other 40% of your budget to put on that. The problem is when we see school districts who are spending things on unused, empty buildings. We had a school district spend $500,000 sending their staff and board members to a conference in Vegas. You had the Tolleson districts try to pitch an $80 million domed stadium. That got shot down, but it gives you an example that we're seeing too many dollars not going to where they want.
Is there a way to get those dollars going to where they should be, or at least in a better way, as opposed to something like this enshrined in the Constitution?
Yeah, so this really, and this is a state law. This would be a statutory fix here. So this is essentially saying we're not micromanaging your budget. We're not saying you need to spend this much on textbooks versus teachers. We're just saying instruction, that core mission of the schools. You can still budget and figure out how much do you do for all these other important measures. But it's again to say every dollar that the schools get, they should be asking first, how can this be used to help students in the way that's most important?
It looks like the districts have been paying like 52% or something about those lines. Lowest percentage since tracking began in 2001. Time to make a change?
Ted, no. And the fact is schools spend close to $7 and $10 on classroom spending. And classroom spending is different here. Classroom spending is special education educators. It's nurses. It's instructional support to ensure that teachers are getting the resources that they need. Again, what this is going to do, and Matt brought up facilities, and I think the judge that ruled in a 119-page judgment siding with school districts saying that the state was underfunding school facilities by $2.2 billion is quite convincing for me that we are not underfunding facilities. But let's just take that aside. This proposition has nothing to do with school facilities because buying, selling land, buying, selling buildings, that's a non-operational expense, and what we're talking about is operational spending.
Please.
Yeah, so two things. One, it's worth noting, you brought this up, we're down to 52 cents on the dollar going toward instruction. It used to be 59%. We've gone from 59 to 52. You actually still have school districts today that are at 58, 59, 60% or more. And Jimmy makes a great point about the schools, in addition to all their operational dollars, they get money for land and buildings. But we see districts spending operational dollars on the maintenance, on the upkeep, on air conditioning for vacant buildings, for underused facilities. The Auditor General has repeatedly said districts like Scottsdale are spending so much money on these underutilized facilities, costs the equivalent of thousands of dollars per teacher that could be getting rerouted back to the teachers and used for classroom instruction. And instead, we're seeing the schools, again, using it on things like administration. You have school districts like Tucson Unified spends $200 more per kid. Roosevelt, $500 more per kid on administration than some of their peers. So there's a lot of opportunity to cut the fat and say, let's reorient this back towards student instruction.
How do you respond to that?
We spend, as a state, on average, 35% less than the national average on administration. And the school districts that are impacted by this specifically spend sometimes 10, 20% less than the state average. So this is not a question of administrative bloat. What this is going to do is impact the things that kids need to be successful. When you think about things like math and reading coaches that really help improve academic success, those are the types of things that are going to be cut. Because when we're looking at school budgets and we're looking at all the things that go into it, we're talking about massive cuts to these things that kids need.
Yeah, and obviously statutory here, not the state constitution. But the fact is, should there be any required spending for specifically classroom needs? Should the state, should government be involved with that at all?
Yeah, well, we're talking about the state, right? These are school districts. These are arms of the government. And we asked that question. Voters 25 years ago passed a ballot measure, Prop 301, added a sales tax that we all pay, and it was to put hundreds of millions of dollars into the Classroom Site Fund for classroom instruction. The state auditor general came out and said the opposite of what voters asked for happened. The schools took that money, put it toward instruction, and took all the other dollars and moved it away. The auditor general said this is in violation of state law. So for years, we've actually increased funding for these schools. We're at $16,000 per kid in these districts. And yet that money is not translating to increases in teacher pay. It's not translating to higher outcomes for the students. So yeah, I think it's absolutely fair to say, let's put some accountability in there.
Anything that helps with teacher pay, why would that not be a good idea, considering that is a major factor for the teacher shortage here in Arizona?
Yeah, Ted, we want teachers to be paid more, but we have the lowest funded schools in the country. If you want to increase teacher pay, let's talk about solutions that actually add resources to the classroom and not simply talk about reallocating and taking away resources that help teachers. And that's why, I'm happy to work with Matt and anybody who wants to put forward a Prop 123 that adds new additional dollars to schools.
If this is such a great idea, why is it larger districts only and not smaller districts? Why the delineation there?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is to say, hey, for those districts, that is a particularly obvious example where they have those means, they have those economies of scale. Again, there's no reason that a district like Tucson Unified, you actually see smaller districts in Arizona, even in rural areas, hitting the 60% measure. So again, this is something that obviously could then be translated to additional opportunities, but to his point, I think there is an interest in saying, how can we maximize pay for teachers? And again, I mentioned the fact we've increased spending in Arizona. Even adjusting for inflation, we're spending 50% more than we did decades ago. Teacher pay is flat, adjusted for inflation. We did the 20 by 20 teacher pay plan under Ducey, the Classroom Site Fund. All these things have gone to increase funding, and yet our teachers are not getting more of that.
Last word on this. Why is that happening?
Ted, we've increased all this funding, and yet we're dead last in the country. If we want to actually increase teacher pay, let's put forward a real solution that increases it, like Prop 123.
You agree with Prop 123?
We're supportive of an option to increase funding for all students, not to say we're going to pick and choose winners and losers here. And we've been supportive of opportunities for increasing Prop 123 funding that is open to all students,
all right.
that provides additional opportunities.
Gentlemen, we have to stop it right there. Matt Beinberg and again, Jimmy Arwood. Good conversation. Good to have you both here on Prop 320. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Because kids will always be more curious, Arizona PBS delivers programs that serve as a trusted guide for little explorers. Thanks to you and
Gear Up alumni and Arizona Jobs Explained are partnering to guide young Arizonans to careers in growing industries. If you know a young person exploring career paths, especially graduates of these Gear Up schools, Glendale High School, Tempe High School, Tolleson Union High School, Washington High School, and Westwood High School, learn more information at azpbs.org/gearup for career advice.
There they are, right there.
I photographed 399 for over 15 years.
Grizzly Bear 399, known as the matriarch or queen.
But her fame makes everything more complicated.
Bears that get close to people lose their normal fear response.
There's just so many things that can go wrong.
Tonight at 7 on Arizona PBS.
I like to think that at Arizona